It was not supposed to be standing there. Not on two legs. Not in the middle of the road. And definitely not at 1 in the morning. The officer slowed down. His headlights cut through the cold darkness near the Little Miami River. For a second, he thought it was an animal. Maybe a dog. Maybe something wounded. But then it turned. And what looked back at him did not look like a dog. It looked almost human. Small. Bent. Wet-looking. With a wide, unnatural face. A face people would later describe as frog-like. This is the story of the Loveland Frogman. A creature that some call a hoax. Some call a mistake. And some still believe crawled out of the river and vanished back into the dark. Loveland, Ohio. A quiet place. A normal place. The kind of town where people go to work, drive home, raise families, and assume the shadows beside the road are just shadows. But in the winter of 1972, something strange was reported near Riverside Drive. A police officer was driving through the night when he saw something crossing the road. It was not large. It was not a giant monster. And maybe that is what makes it worse. Because the thing was close enough to see. Close enough to describe. Close enough to remember. It was said to be around 3 to 4 feet tall. Standing upright. With leathery skin. A strange body. And a head that did not belong on anything walking like a man. The officer watched it move. Not run like a deer. Not crawl like a lizard. Walk. Across the road. Toward the river. Then it disappeared. And the night became silent again. But that silence did not feel empty anymore. It felt occupied. As if something had been there the whole time. Watching from the dark water. Waiting for someone to finally notice. The story did not begin in 1972. Years earlier, in the 1950s, another strange account had already been whispered around Loveland. A man claimed he saw several bizarre creatures near the water. Small humanoid figures. Frog-like. Standing together in the night. One version of the story says one of them held something that gave off sparks. A wand. A tool. A branch. Or maybe just the detail that turned a strange sighting into a nightmare. Because the human mind can survive seeing an animal. But it struggles with seeing an animal behaving like a person. That is where fear begins. Not when something is impossible. But when it is almost possible. Almost explainable. Almost normal. The Loveland Frogman became one of those stories people laugh at in daylight. A frogman. A walking amphibian. A ridiculous thing. Until you imagine being alone on that road. No music. No other cars. Only your headlights. Only the river. Only the thing stepping out of the darkness. And suddenly the joke does not feel funny anymore. Because if the officer was mistaken, what exactly did he see? A sick animal? A large lizard? A shadow? A trick of the headlights? Maybe. But why did the story survive? Why did people keep repeating it? Why did Loveland embrace this strange creature instead of forgetting it? Maybe because every town has something it tries not to look at directly. A bridge. A riverbank. A road where people slow down without knowing why. A place where the trees grow too close to the pavement. A place where the night feels older than the town itself. And maybe the Loveland Frogman is not just a creature. Maybe it is the shape fear takes when it climbs out of the water. Cold. Low to the ground. Half animal. Half nightmare. There is something especially disturbing about amphibians. They belong to two worlds. Water and land. Hidden and visible. Below and above. They can wait without moving. They can watch without blinking. And when something like that is imagined with arms, legs, and a face almost like ours, it becomes unbearable. Because the question changes. It is no longer, was it real? The question becomes, what if it was intelligent? What if it saw the officer too? What if it was not afraid? What if it simply decided to leave? One version of the 1972 account says another officer later encountered what he believed was the same creature. This time, the story became even darker. A shot was fired. The thing was hit. Or something like it was. Years later, an explanation surfaced. Not a monster. Not a frogman. A misidentified animal. Possibly an iguana. Something ordinary. Something that could bleed. Something that could die. And maybe that should have ended the legend. But it did not. Because explanations are not always the same as closure. Sometimes they only create a second mystery. How does an ordinary animal become a creature that haunts a town for decades? How does one strange night turn into folklore? How does a mistake become a monster? Maybe because people do not only fear what is impossible. They fear the moment reality slips. The moment the normal world glitches. The moment a police officer, trained to observe, sees something he cannot place. And for a few seconds, the map of the world changes. The Loveland Frogman does not need to be real to be terrifying. It only needs one dark road. One witness. One glimpse. One shape moving wrong under the headlights. That is enough. Enough for people to wonder. Enough for a town to remember. Enough for the river to feel different after midnight. Today, the Frogman is part of Loveland's identity. A mascot. A legend. A strange local icon. People make art of it. They tell stories about it. They turn it into something fun. Something safe. Something printed on shirts and posters. But that is what humans do with fear. We decorate it. We sell it. We laugh at it. Because the alternative is worse. The alternative is admitting that, once, someone looked into the darkness beside a river. And the darkness looked back. Maybe it was just an animal. Maybe it was a hoax. Maybe it was nothing more than a story that grew legs. But somewhere near the Little Miami River, there is still a road. And on the wrong night, with the wrong fog, and the wrong silence, You can understand how a person might see something small crossing ahead. Something wet. Something upright. Something that pauses at the edge of the headlights and turns its head. Not like an animal. Like it knows you are there. And then it steps into the dark. Back toward the water. Back where the light cannot follow. And maybe that is the real horror of the Loveland Frogman. Not that people saw a monster, but that after all these years, no one can say with certainty what they saw. Only that something was there. Something by the river. Something walking on two legs. Something that should not have been possible. And yet, for one frozen moment, it was.